everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain, and I want to welcome you to this webinar on Facing the Board, Making Personalized Omnichannel Fulfillment Profitable, presented by GreyOrange and enVista. Now, one quick note, we do welcome questions from the audience, so at any time during the presentation, just click on that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and our speakers will be only too happy to address any questions that you might have. Now, this webinar is going to unpack strategies for marrying digital promises with physical fulfillment while preserving the ability to deliver on financial and service expectations within labor, space, and time constraints. Some of the things you can expect to learn from today's presentation: understanding how to create the digital and physical synergies required to meet modern commerce demands for any product, any channel, anytime, any customer. Pinpoint areas where artificial intelligence, smart robots, and unified commerce capabilities have the greatest impact on accelerating speed and reducing costs. Define a plan for making the personal profitable in your fulfillment operations. Know when and why to transform physical processes that fail to serve modern commerce demands. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to GreyOrange's Chief Marketing Officer, Terry O'Hanlon. Terry, take it away.
Hello, I'm Terry O'Hanlon, Chief Marketing Officer at GreyOrange. Welcome to our continuing Facing the Board webinar series, in which we prepare executives to discuss with their boards of directors modern fulfillment and supply chain strategies, especially as these operations are subjected to increased inquiry and scrutiny. Today, GreyOrange partner John Seidl and enVista Chief Strategy Officer Jean Bornac explore how companies can overcome the challenge of making personalized omnichannel fulfillment profitable. As companies emerge from the channel upending impact of a global pandemic, virtually all agree that achieving true omnichannel operations is a desirable goal. Who can argue with placing the customer at the center of the buying channel, product selection, and delivery choice? However, many are shocked to learn that operating omnichannel fulfillment can be a profit-draining proposition. This reality leaves fulfillment leaders in a tough spot. How can they answer board of director demands for omnichannel agility to inoculate fulfillment against future pandemic or other sweeping impacts, and yet not sacrifice margins and profits? That's what we'll explore today. But first, a quick introduction to GreyOrange and enVista. John Seidl and Jean Bornac. GreyOrange modernizes order fulfillment through a fulfillment operating system that combines artificial intelligence-driven software and smart mobile robots built together so that they make each other smarter as they work together to optimize and execute warehouse activities to create the highest yield. John Seidl is a GreyOrange strategy partner and a recognized authority in the warehouse technology, operations, and material handling automation industries. He's advised hundreds of companies on fulfillment and warehousing strategies for more than 30 years and has served in leadership roles with Kurt Solomon, Accenture, and Deloitte. enVista is a global software consulting and managed services provider that optimizes and transforms physical and digital commerce for the world's leading manufacturers, distributors, 3PLs, and omnichannel retailers. The resulting supply chain efficiencies drive cost savings, while unified commerce enhances customer engagement and revenue. Chief Strategy Officer Jean Bornac is a leading retail expert with a track record of delivering highly successful client engagements for well-known retailers, including Williams-Sonoma, Pottery Barn, Pier 1 Imports, Liz Claiborne Staples, J.Crew, a fine group of companies. Jean's advice draws on more than 35 years of retail and consumer products expertise with a specialty in retail management at the store and district levels, plus executive level experience at multiple consulting firms and retail technology companies. Jean also has served in leadership positions at Boston Retail Partners, Manhattan Associates, Catchpoint 360, and Piedmont Retail Consulting. Now I'm going to put John in the hot seat first with some tough questions that boards are asking. John, having come out of this global pandemic, boards are really saying, how can we protect our business from the next global shutdown threat? How can we assess and use digital information to create better customer experiences anytime in any channel? How can we better match inventory visibility with demand so we streamline fulfillment? And how can we eradicate data and operational silos to unify digital and physical processes so we can profitably make and keep our customer promises? So, just a few quick, short, easy questions for you to tackle.
Thank you, Terry. And you've kind of summed it up there in that description. There are a number of challenges going on, right? And the context can be, wow, we've learned some lessons the hard way from the pandemic. How do we prevent similar challenges from occurring in the future? Or now that we're coming out of the pandemic, what's the retail landscape going to look like for us? How are our customers going to choose to engage with us? How are we going to best position ourselves to meet that engagement and not only their expectations, but also how are we going to leverage our inventory to drive effective and profitable fulfillment? And so it's a combination of recovery and positioning for both the new market of today and tomorrow, and leveraging the lessons learned to prevent any sort of future disruption from having a similar challenging impact on operations, right? Most of our clients have seen a massive channel shift as part of the pandemic, with an increased demand on e-commerce in whatever form that takes, and a migration of that customer engagement from a face-to-face setting in a store to an online interaction in some form or another. And it's created all sorts of challenges. Inventory trapped in retail warehouses that are not equipped for filling e-commerce orders, inventory trapped in retail stores that are either closed or not being visited by consumers with the same frequency, inventory fulfillment costs that are too high, shortages of labor to actually perform the fulfillment. All sorts of ways to disappoint customers as we all kind of come to grips with the world that we live in today. So the focus for us really starts upstream with that inventory strategy of what inventory should I have in my assortment now? Where should that inventory be positioned in my supply chain network to best satisfy that customer? And what tools and techniques do I need to put in place from a physical fulfillment standpoint to best align with this new digital customer experience?
If all that needs to change, why aren't we seeing, more faster, more accelerated adoption of a new way of doing business?
Well, I think that some of that's human nature, right? And that inherent fight against change is pretty common. But retail, especially, and omnichannel retailers have struggled with that quite a lot. I mean, our memories have dimmed a little bit, but the reality is before the pandemic, before this once in a century disaster that befell, communities around the world and businesses, retail was in a massive cycle of change anyway. Failures among retailers, disappointments for shareholders were growing by the year throughout the last, right? So we were in a time of massive turmoil and change. And a lot of retailers had begun to forget what their primary reason for existence was, which was to match a customer with a product profitably, right? They started chasing all sorts of interesting strategies, and in that process lost the case for change, right? So much to what John was saying is retail at the headline level is fairly simple. I select products, I place products, customers buy products, I make money, right? Down below the headline, it's pretty complex. And that's where the case for change has been harder to make, because customers don't care whether you have 17 nodes of inventory or one. What they do care about is they get it when they want it, and then the whole process is transparent. So change has been hard to accept for a lot of retailers because it's complex, it's deep, and it's mostly multifaceted. John talked about the factors, right? I have too much inventory. I have too little inventory. I have inventory in the wrong place. Inventory is trapped. Inventory is inaccessible. I don't have people to move the inventory because I've got labor shortages. Where do you start first, right? And that's been the challenge. So in dealing with retailers last year, especially, our conversation turned to what is the primary reason you're here, right? And the reason you're here is to connect customers with your products, right? So if you're a retailer who their main channel dropped to virtually zero in sales, we have to figure out how to get product to customer, right? In an era where people talk about supply chains being broken, it got to be even more complex. But we saw retailers who had tens of millions of dollars of inventory in the wrong place. So that means that you have to think about doing things in a different way. And that's been the challenge. And this is really the start of a massive retail rebirth, right? The continuum of change is not going to be the same as it was in 2018, 2019. Speed is picking up. A lot of pundits think that where we are is we've now fast forwarded to what the market would have looked like in 23 or 24 because of market conditions. So now retailers are now 3 years behind in where they need to be. So it's a big challenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that, in our conversations leading up to this webinar, you and John were really ideating and brainstorming on just the power of unifying digital and physical commerce so that you can profitably deliver on the whole customer-centric experience. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? Maybe the challenges in operating profitably, and then maybe what's the path to unifying physical and digital commerce in a way that makes sense and is operationally practical.
Sure. Well, if you think about the challenge ahead is the customer, she doesn't really care about the complexity behind the scene, right? She wants value. She wants things delivered to her either in a physical or a digital format that are fast and transparent and accurate, right? So if we start thinking about the challenge, right, traditional bricks and mortar retail, it is a relatively profitable enterprise if you have customers who like your products, right? It has a relatively straightforward and linear distribution process. You can drive costs down by raising quantities and really combining what you're doing in a way that creates efficiencies, right? And you can control both inventory placement and your point of demand because you can pick your locations. The digital world completely blows all that up, right? The customer, she can come to you anywhere she wants, anytime she wants. She can choose different fulfillment options continuously, right? So one day she wants it delivered to her front door, next day she wants it in her office, the day after she wants it in a physical store. So those complexities and the fact that you can now interleave the physical and the digital processes make it far more complex behind the scenes. So how do you bring them together? Well, first of all, you need to think about your inventory as a unified entity, right? So you can't have multiple inventories for multiple fulfillment strategies because no company can afford all that extra inventory. You need to think about your route to customer, and you need to really figure out what the fulfillment strategies are and how to drive costs and efficiencies down and up in those fulfillment strategies. You need to think about why your product is being placed in certain places. Think about the demand. So you need to attack fixed costs. And if you think about the case for optimizing and automating fulfillment, right, it's really about how do I create more speed, more efficiency, address shortages, and drive down costs, right? So if I can address the costs at the same time as I address the customer demand side and understand where they're going to be, I have an opportunity to make the highest potential margin on each of those transactions. So it's a complicated dance, but at the head of that whole process is a customer who doesn't care what you're doing behind the scenes. They want a unified experience. They want to be delighted no matter how they choose to interact with your organization, and everything else just needs to be to them like a utility. It just works, right? So when we think about the combining the demands of physical and digital and those demand streams that are flowing through a DC, I think that's where automation plays. And I'm sure that as John walks through the case for automation, we'll see that that's where we can do a lot of that magic behind the scenes to delight that customer.
Well, so Terry, yeah, I just was going to add, it's a challenge when, the leading retailers, the Amazons and Walmarts of the world already had a heart, and their heart has been accelerated due to the pandemic. Their ability to forward position or locally position inventory and meet those customer expectations exceeds that of the market. So the gap between the leaders and the rest of the industry has actually broadened here in the last year. And, if you think about it, the measurement of success for the consumer is how long from when they click that buy button on their browser until that package is sitting on their front step, right? That to them is order cycle time. That's success. If it's there when they expect it, it's there in one box, it's, it's the right product, they got what they ordered. That's kind of the measurement of success. And yet so many of the retailers that we work with, when we start talking about leveraging inventory across the nodes in their supply chain, we will spend cycles worrying about who gets credit for the sale, which channel sold this product. If I'm sharing inventory across my stores and my e-com network, whose labor is accountable for processing that e-com order in the store or what have you. So they're asking and solving the wrong problems because, as Gene said, the consumer doesn't care, right? They don't care if that inventory came from one or more nodes. They don't care where that node is, as long as they got what they ordered when they expected to receive it. So it's the imperative here is to kind of get past some of the legacy functional and technical limitations that grew up over time in a channeled, siloed, based environment to one where you're really focused on the customer experience. And the great news in all of this, of course, is that, an effective order management system from an organization like enVista paired with the appropriate fulfillment automation can achieve that customer expectation. It can match the order management system can match the available inventory to the demand, and the right fulfillment strategy can effectively and cost efficiently fill that order and get it to the consumer when they expect it.
So maybe we can dive a little bit deeper into that, because you touched on a couple of things there. We were talking in our prep session about the question is not what technology should I buy, but really how do I change my organization so that the technology can be meaningfully applied. And you talked a little bit about that. So once you get the organization right, why don't we talk about the challenges in doing that? But then maybe you and Gene can dive into that technology structure where you've got the modern order management system, and then that is cooperating with a modern fulfillment system and AI and robots and other sort of enabling technologies to be able to meet, demand anywhere, anytime, any volume, despite constraints.
Yeah, I'll make one brief comment and then I'll turn it to Gene because he's the real expert in this space. But change management, whether it's organizational design, all the way down to just effective business processes within each function that's involved in the execution of fulfillment, is probably the critical path and the hardest thing to accomplish in these projects. Yes, there's technological integration work that needs to be done. Yes, there's new automation to be implemented, whether it's application software or physical robotics. But the positioning of the organization to accept that change, to embrace that change, and to reorganize themselves to meet those customer expectations can typically be the hardest part of this initiative. And just curious to get your take on the imperative related to change in greater detail.
Sure. Thanks, John. The case for change is it's pretty stark when we look at retail today. And the difference between where we were in the past and where we were now, where retailers used to decide what customers wanted versus today, customers tell us what they want and they have virtually unlimited sources, is pretty big, right? So I think it was Warren Buffett who said that, you can only tell who's been swimming without a suit when the tide goes out, right? So for retail and for omnichannel retail, the crisis of the pandemic has shown us who wasn't prepared. So that's part of the case for change, is that, this slow rolling disaster for so many retailers is pointing to they need to change, but unifying their business around the customer, aligning everything from their physical locations to their supply chain process and technology in a way that the customer gets served, is the imperative, right? So it starts really at the C-suite, right? And I think, John, you pointed to that. It's like, this is a high level case, but it needs to go down to the individual processes. The board and the C-suite at these companies needs to understand that it's never going to be what it was, right? We're never going to go back to where we were, and we're never going to be able to make the same levels of profit based on doing things the old way, right? Now there are competitors out there that are already putting things in boxes 3 hours before Terry orders them, right? They're so predictive in knowing the demand that they know that a certain percentage of items is going to move today. And if you ever wonder how you can place an order and it can tell you in 12 minutes that it's already packed and that you'll get it this afternoon, it's because they already started to think about what was going to go in that box before you place the order. So if I'm a retailer who's still working on 6-month, 9-month, 12-month lead times in my business, and I'm telling my customer when they place an order on my website that it's 5 to 7 business days before I'm gonna ship the item to them, not before they get it, but before I ship it, I'm done. So I need to look at all my process and start thinking about how I support all that different way of thinking. And once I align the processes and I start thinking the customer's at the center, the customer wants speed, she wants value, she wants transparency, she wants accuracy, and she wants a seamless process, whether she's buying or returning an item, then I now have the second case, which is the case for a technology transformation, right? So whether it's new technology in my distribution center, new technology in my stores, or a modern order management solution, I need to start addressing how I weave it all together. We go from a world of disparate systems and different ownership to a single ownership of the process, right? And that's what a modern order management solution can do for you. One view of inventory, one view of customers, one view of transactions, and really a hub at the center of the business that accepts all the points of demand, figures out the best way to fulfill that demand, and then sources that inventory from those fulfillment strategies, right? So whether it's a dropship vendor or a 3PL or your own DCs, or your stores, understanding where the inventory is, real time, and preparing to move that inventory to the customer's hands in a way that both keeps the customer satisfied and tries to protect the maximum level of profitability on each order. That's the trick. And that's why you need to have an order management system in the middle of all of this, because one system really is a central nervous system to drive this. So when you think about, I unified my business around customer centricity. Now I unify my response to customer demand around a single application that will then fulfill that customer need, that will keep that promise. It makes sense, right? You're now simplifying organizations from dozens, if not hundreds of touch points down to a really central set of processes and technology that flows and drives things. And then you can leverage strategies like highly automated fulfillment to get optimal cost savings and throughput to really meet the customer's promise.
No, I was just going to say, Gene, I think you're right on target, because what we're seeing is because the order management system is capable of leveraging inventory from any node in the network, that a lot of the customers we're working with are looking to not only drive automation into their fulfillment centers that may be regional or national in scale, but into localized inventory, whether it's a micro fulfillment center or a retail store, in order to meet those customer expectations, so that when we start talking about AI on the fulfillment side, we're really talking about execution of that fulfillment and how to make that as efficient, cost effective, and aligned with the SLAs or service levels for those customers, regardless of where I'm filling it. A lot of the places where we're deploying our software platform and our robots now are store back rooms. They're micro fulfillment centers. They're 3PLs that are servicing remote markets, but locally. Sure, we're still doing the large, fully automated regional DCs as part of the broader strategy, but that automation is being driven into the field in order to capture the value of the OMS that's sending those demand signals to that local point of fulfillment. And of course, to your earlier point, the labor challenges are there as well, perhaps even more acute when you get into a retail store, because store associates are store associates, not warehouse associates. So automation in the fulfillment process out the back of the store, or even out the front of the store for buy online, click and collect, we're driving a lot more automation on both sides of that equation.
Definitely. Well, so first of all, I mean, the strategy here needs to, for an omnichannel retailer that's dedicated to thriving in this environment in the future, is really, to simplify it, is to try and skate where the puck's going to be, right? And the best way to do that is to start by doing real assessments on what you've got right now and what your team looks like, how you've organized your business, and are you focused on the things that are going to win in the field, right? So assessing your omnichannel health and understanding really where you are on the maturity scale, understanding where you need to be, and having a solid partner who not only has technology to bring forward, but who can also help you understand what you need to achieve, the timelines that are necessary to do it, and where things are going, right? So John mentioned the interplay of AI in this process. As we continue to build up capabilities in order management, AI is going to be the game changer, right? So I mentioned there are companies out there that know what Terry wants to order hours before she wants to order it. That's the standard we need to drive for. We need AI to really understand where demand's going to be. So not only can we place the inventory in the right places, but also if we need to source inventory, we can understand its future potential profitability to move that inventory. And then to interact with AI on the fulfillment side, whether it's in a back room or it's in a distribution center, and to be able to all work together in a way that we can predict what we need to do in order to have the right labor in place, in order to have the right strategies and the right inventory to drive maximum profitability and customer satisfaction. That's where the game is going. And for a retailer, it really starts with asking the question, where am I today, versus that vision, because you should know that your competition is already trying to go there.
Terry, I would add just a few thoughts there, right? There's a couple of things going on here, right? As part of that assessment that Jean described, what is your automation strategy as it relates to fulfillment? Where should I be leveraging automation in the fulfillment process? Not only from a software standpoint, but from an advanced automation, material handling, robotics standpoint as well. And typically, most of our engagements with our customers start that way. We come in and do an automation assessment looking at your store operations, looking at your fulfillment nodes, whether they be micro fulfillment centers or large regional facilities, and talking through what's the best way to capture an effective execution process through the use of automation. What sequence should you go after? Where's the value? Where's the benefit? What's the roadmap need to look like? Where are the early wins that you could have in 2021 before peak? Where are the wins that you need to be targeting, longer term strategies for 22, 23 and beyond as the market continues to evolve? Most of the automation strategies that we're working with are hybrid strategies, leveraging both legacy fulfillment, automation, as well as new innovative robotic-based fulfillment. So, work with a trusted partner, figure out what's right for your organization, for your supply chain, and for your end consumers, to figure out how you're best going to satisfy their expectations going forward.
So John and Jean, I want to make you aware that we're showing now on the screen contact information for each of you, including phone number and email, so that our attendees can reach out and get started on this journey to profitably reorganizing around the customer and deploying all of these modern technologies, but more importantly, the change management that enables them to be effective in their organizations. And we also have, as a note to point out, that GreyOrange offers a fulfillment automation assessment that we're offering to do for free. And you see the details of that on the screen here. And enVista offers an omnichannel health check, as well as a customized peak performance planning workshop. And you can see the details of that there. And John and Jean will be happy to enroll whoever reaches out to contact them in this next step. Okay, and so with that, I want to thank John and Jean for such a great conversation, and of course, all of our attendees for joining us in this webinar to figure out how to make the personal profitable in this new retail world. Thanks to both of you and to our audience.
And thank you, Terry. And let me add my thanks and
Terry.
appreciation for a great presentation from John Seidl of GreyOrange and Jean Bornac of enVista. It couldn't be a more timely topic, making personalized omnichannel fulfillment profitable. So again, audience, thank you very much for listening. You have the information before you right there. If you'd like to reach both John and Jean for more information, I'm sure they would be only too happy to entertain any questions or comments that you might have. For now then, thanks again to everybody. Thank you, audience, for your attendance, and everybody have a great day.